call to order the regularly scheduled board meeting of USD 464 for Monday, August the 8th. Before I ask you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, I just kind of want to acknowledge to the public and the patrons that we are holding the meeting for the first time in our new room here at the West Campus, USD 464. So thanks a lot to everyone that supported this project, and I guess come watch our meetings, hopefully from a better presentation here and a nicer room than we had at the elementary. At this time, please join me in a Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we have two changes to our agenda tonight. I'd like to move that we amend the agenda, add presentation 1.6 from Mr. Callahan regarding the THS Animal Science Lab, and then we're going to remove from the consent agenda item 2.8 the transportation handbook. So with that, with those two amendments, I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
Move that we approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
I second it.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. All right. With that, we'll move into the presentations, and that would be Aaron, you're up first. Turn it off.
All right, good evening. Okay, I'll jump right into the bond project monthly update. All right, in terms of budget, again, the total bond budget of $51.4 million is holding steady. Have the breakdown of the contingency detail. Sorry, thought I was going to help myself there. So we continue to use some of the district GMP contingency for a few unforeseen conditions that still remain out there, as well as some remaining changes to the scope of work, mostly which had to do with kind of finishing up the details here in the West Campus. So you can see the current contingency amount there, along with the forecast. I do have a separate sheet if anybody is interested on what those forecasted items are, but they really remain the same. We have some unforeseen conditions that were taken care of with the connection points and the draining of the roof between the old gym and the new gym, as well as I mentioned, some scope items here in the West Campus, just as everything came together, just really making sure everything was done in a really consistent manner. Soft cost contingency has remained unchanged. I did transfer some funds. We had some of the funds for the second day furniture purchases, which we've started to use some of that as you moved into spaces and realized a few extra pieces that are needed. So that was just kind of transferred within the budget. The district project contingency, the forecast amount there is taking into account the I apologize on that one. Let me get back to you on that. Let me sit down and look at that. I was put this together over a week ago before I left town, so I need to recall what that change was. And then the facility improvement allowance remains consistent there. Oh, now I remember what it was. So the baseline, this is just a calculation. So when you look at the detail for the change orders, McCown Gordon returned their a significant portion of the construction contingency along with the unused COVID allowance. And you can see that highlighted in the yellow on this log. So we actually went up, and this current, the amount of the district project contingency actually went up. I just didn't get that transferred over to the forecasted amount. So the forecasted amount should also be that 2.2 million. So we increased the amount of money in that district project contingency because of the returning of those funds. All right, substantial completion dates. West Campus and East Campus renovations were completed. East Campus ahead of schedule. And the next substantial completion will be the Fitness and Wellness Center. Still targeting the December 28th date for that. Weather days still did well with weather days, no additional weather days claimed through the month of August. Key deliverables and inspections. The concrete floor flatness test for the gym was performed, and if you guys hadn't seen that previously, it did meet the specifications, slightly exceeded the specification, in that the report is attached to this so you can see. So with that, McCown Gordon will proceed with the plan put in place. Their subcontractor will remain on board to complete the next couple concrete pours of the under slab for the lobby, and then the topping slabs for all the corridors, which will be again tested for that floor flatness in the polished concrete areas. The test and balance and pre-functional testing will be beginning here in September, along with the 50% fire marshal inspection. So just some upcoming other things going on. Key milestone dates, nothing has changed dramatically from previous updates. As I mentioned, the gym slab on grade pour has been completed. And the next one is the Commons high roof slab. Should have gotten poured last week while I was gone. Yes, did get poured on 8/1. And then getting the roofing completed and the full building dried in. There's some overhead rough-in going on in the gym right now, so they'll have an inspection on that at the end of the month. And we'll then start working on some of the interior finishes, the gym floor, the bleachers, other drywall and painting throughout the addition. We did get confirmed for FF&E install date of December 15th, and that's kind of the last item there on the look ahead.
Is that start or finish of the FF&E?
That is the start date of the FF&E. With the goal of them finishing installing the FF&E about the same time that McCown is able to turn over the gym with the flooring and the bleachers. So it should all be ready to go at the same time, because they'll be done with all the classrooms and areas that actually get furniture before they're done with the gym, and there's not a lot of owner furnished FF&E in the gym.
How much time is allotted for commissioning?
It'll start that September 15th is when the
Okay.
pre-functionals start, and it'll be continuing through through that December
Okay.
date. So the rooftop units are set, they're getting the rough-in in, and they'll start running all those tests. We have talked about getting here before the end of the month, having a kickoff meeting with the commissioning agent for this phase of the project and getting all that started. Okay, key outstanding risk issues changes. The Learning Center punch list and warranty, again, just continue to track any warranty items that come up and getting those addressed. There were several of those items addressed over the summer, adding some control joints for cracking. There's currently a list of kitchen equipment outstanding issues that came up week before last that we're starting to dig into and figure out what is warranty versus normal maintenance issues. So starting to work through that. Athletics and West Campus furniture and miscellaneous FF&E, everything is ordered. West Campus furniture is more or less complete. We are still missing a few items that have been back ordered and chasing those down. Have some dates here later this month, as well as a couple items that are delayed until September. The gym, as I mentioned, will be installed on December 15th with the goal of having all that furniture installed at the same time that the gym itself gets turned over. Sheet metals workers strike, we spoke about that last month, and that issue got resolved within the time frame where it did not affect the timeline of the project. So good news there. The West Campus and TPAC renovations are all complete, and the moves were completed. I think, Lauren, no major hiccups with the move over to this building. So
They did a great job.
Polished concrete floor flatness, kind of talked through that, and we will continue to move forward with that plan and keep an eye on the next floor testing results as well. As I mentioned, the McCown-Gordon allowance and contingency credit, based on the progress of the project and the remaining risk, in conversations with McCown, they have returned a substantial portion of contingency along with that unused COVID allowance that was set up in the original GMP. So that has been put into that district contingency, which is outside of the GMP for the district's use. Okay, and then project design enhancements. I know there'll be some additional discussion on this later. The next kind of big item that was on that list that we've talked about in several meetings is the CTE, potential CTE renovations. And there was initial budget of that work between $500,000 and $600,000, which included the furniture and the AV. And looking tonight to have some discussion about moving forward with contracts for design to begin that process with having it designed, bid out, and procured to begin work over next summer. So I know it seems like there's a lot of time left, but just with lead times, I mean, the furniture for this building we ordered in January and we're still missing stuff, so and the AV stuff has long lead times as well. Any questions on those items? Okay. So yeah, just had a couple pictures in the report here of the ongoing work and the full contingency log back up along with the floor flatness report. So if there are no other questions.
Anything else for Aaron right now? You're gonna stick around for the other?
Yeah, I'll stick around. Okay, thank you.
All right. Mitch?
Just a couple things from an update standpoint. As we complete the summer, we've obviously spent a lot of the summer doing a lot of the same custodial maintenance that we've done in most of our buildings, especially in the elementary and middle schools, with refinishing floors, moving teachers, furniture like that. So our custodial staffs have done a really nice job in those buildings. They are all done at this point and ready. Teachers have started coming back in the last week to set their rooms up. And so from a cleaning standpoint, they're ready for students to be in there next week. Couple of big projects that we tackled. I won't say they're done because we took a big chunk out of them. They're not done, but we have kind of given a facelift to the middle school. We have completely painted the interior of all the common spaces in the middle school, including the commons and all the classroom hallways with a handful of rooms. Updated the lovely tan color that was in them from the early 2000s and got a new kind of fresh coat of paint. So a little more modern feel to it, and kind of tied in with what we did at the high school as well with getting rid of the colors and doing everything in a gray and red. So if you're ever at the middle school soon, you'll see a big time change when you walk in the front door there. And the plan is to continue that and to get all the classrooms done and you know, maybe even the gym at some point. But we've tackled a big portion of it with the commons area and in the hallways. And like I said, we've really gotten rid of that tan color that I'm not a huge fan of, and I don't think Casey Brown was a huge fan of either. Oh, that was me. Doesn't happen to you. And then the other big project that we're awfully proud of right now is we began a changeover in the elementary school. I know one of the projects that we identified on the master plan was an LED conversion for the elementary school, and we have kind of found a way to do that without outsourcing that and retrofitting the housings that we have. We've got all the main hallways done upstairs and downstairs. We ran into a little hiccup in the use of the rooms that we're kind of trying to work through from a wiring standpoint right now. But all our main hallways now are LED lights. The emergency lights are LED lights now. And so we've began that changeover, something that probably should have been done initially, but and are doing it for considerably cheaper than what it would have cost to outsource that through, you know, whomever. But our guys have kind of figured out a way to make that happen and got that complete too. So I'm excited to see kind of how that goes over the next few years, but should offer quite a bit of cost savings as well as, you know, just a better product for us out there. So other than that, we're wrapping up a few other little things, but the middle school and the elementary school, those are the two big projects we kind of tackled there. And then obviously at the high school, we're just in the support mode right now for McCown Gordon and what they're doing until they turn that building over to us. So it's been a good summer, and like I said, our custodians have done an outstanding job again this year of getting everything deep cleaned and ready, and excited to have kids back next week. So
You might touch base on the sound system, because there's been a lot of work there.
sure. The sound system, so we have, I believe this week the boring should happen, maybe even tomorrow or Wednesday, to run the conduit from the scoreboard to the press box. The extensions are up, the plates are up, and so our understanding, as soon as that boring gets done, then the other half of the crew is going to come out and the speakers will be hooked up, hopefully by the end of this week, if not early next week, and have it geared up for the Tongi tailgate. There's a new topper on the scoreboard out at the football field, and like I said, you can see the extensions of the I-beams. That looks really nice, so that should all be done. We kind of got a sigh when we talked to Torgerson last week that they said they'd have that done for us, and no worries here as we come up on fall activities and the Tongi tailgate there on the 19th. So
I think the other thing that you're going to notice is that Mitch and McCown Gordon and whoever, they put a lot of effort into cleaning up that area around the field house, all the new curbing, that's gone in. I mean, even though it's not where we want it to be, with grass and everything, but it is a marked improvement. A lot of dirt was put in with some help.
yeah,
And
I think that area will be kind of go from just a catch-all to everything to be something we can really be proud of to look at from especially this angle here on the east side of the high school as we look down there and complete this overhaul of this campus. So I'm pretty excited to see what that looks like in about a year, but it is definitely better now. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
That's okay. Parking for fall sports down by the stadium, how will that go this year?
So we will have some of that access road parking. The majority of it will be up here with the north sidewalk as the access point to that. Depending on the capacity we're at, we may have to push some parking here. I know we have addressed on a couple levels of looking for some sort of transportation to offer, whether it be elderly or handicapped folks that need to get a ride down to the football field instead of walking from this parking lot all the way down there. But we do have quite a bit of the access road parking opened up, and hopefully with the parking out front here, we should have a plan to get through this season until we get the full parking lot turned over to us.
And custodial service for this building, did you have to hire people to, now that we have people staffed in this building? Or you-
No, we made one hire for this building, and other than that, we haven't had to make any additional hires. We will look later in this semester, November, December, because when the gym opens up, that square footage will probably require another person. But right now, I'd say we're as staffed as we've been in a long, long time, and maybe one more person for the new addition.
So we did hire a part-time
Mhm.
custodian here, and it's Captain Kirk. We we borrowed him
Borrowed him.
from the West from West Haven, and he's working in both places, and he's remarkable. We've been very pleased. So he takes a lot of pride in his work, so that's what we like to see.
Very much so.
I mean, I guess kind of to Stephanie's first point, like the parking for the games. I mean, I'm sure we're communicating that with schools and things, but whatever we can, maybe the paper or push out on
Or like the
social
buses.
media so that we can. Yeah.
So I know.
I'm thinking about like the buses for the teams. When they come, they tend to park in spots where would be ideal parking for people to.
So that's something that Cody and now Josie and I have kind of addressed, that they have put together a new kind of plan to send. We send something out all the time. Now, whether or not their administration reads it and passes it on to their bus drivers and they pay attention to it, or do they take the easiest possible route? But we've got some striping things going on and some parking curbs that we're going to try to put in there. Mostly to alleviate buses parking in the field house parking lot that is kind of the prime parking for our patrons and our people. But I know we're working on that, and I think that we'll probably be a little more aggressive in chasing those people off and getting them where they need to go, because we don't have the luxury of any excess right now.
So are those things going to be completed prior to the first home game, or is that something that'll be done?
The striping,
Yeah.
And the curbing, you said curbing.
the curbing's done.
The curbing's all done.
Okay.
We're missing, we've got another layer of asphalt to finish it. The striping, I'm not 100% sure, and these guys could probably answer better.
That striping won't go on until that second layer of asphalt goes on, correct?
Yeah.
All the parking striping won't go on until then.
Yeah.
The field house is probably gonna get striped earlier than that. If I can get them out here to do a special trip this week,
Yes, it was an ad.
Will that change the way that you enter that field house? There's a pretty big bump there now going in. So is that there's going to be another layer going up? All right.
So we've talked about that a little bit. That when you enter off the street to the access road and the access road into that transition should become considerably smoother, because I believe they're taking some asphalt out to kind of bring that up where the new curb is. So yeah.
And where the water is standing, that will be taken
Right.
care of too.
I'm gonna leave it.
The second layer of asphalt won't go on until
It's all done.
just November.
So it'll be
Much better.
much better. It'll be a little, I mean, there'll be some things to work through, I think, early on, but I think the big things are keeping buses out of that field house lot, allowing the skate park parking for them, and getting them to the right
Well,
places.
even if you don't have the full level of asphalt, should you not have buses driving on that if you haven't fully put that in? Will that damage what you already have there?
Yeah, I think buses, as long as they're driving just straight in and out, would be fine, but there's nowhere to park at the end of that, so that would be a good route for buses. in my opinion.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be
Dead
able to-
end.
Yeah, they're gonna hit the fence at some
Yeah,
point,
yeah.
so.
Yeah.
I think the plan is to funnel them into that skate park, Millings lot, and keep them over there. How well they listen is.
So it sounds like pictures and something like
Yeah.
that then could be posted on the website. Also, just as almost like an information campaign. I mean, do you
Well,
agree
even
with that?
signage, maybe if you have bus
Signage.
parking signage or something.
Yeah,
where,
I think that's all things that are completely manageable for us to do, so we can, sending something out for the public would be good, just so they understand. And then I know the diagrams and stuff are in place for the opposing schools that are coming here, so hopefully we have big crowds and we have to work through this. So
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mitch? Thanks for the update, Mitch.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Zach?
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Zach Callahan, one of the ag instructors and FFA advisors in the ag department at THS. And I'm here to talk to you guys tonight about a proposal that I've been excited about for a while. You know, I'm in my third year teaching and third year at Tonganoxie, and this is something I've had in the back of my head for a while, and I think now is a good time to tackle it. But before I get into the real nitty-gritty details of the actual plan here, I just want to give a little bit of background on our animal science program, which is one of my primary focuses at the high school. So the pathway that kids follow when they are interested in animal science is they take Intro to Ag, and I went ahead and put the students who have requested to take these classes this year, the number of students, and so we have 83 students requesting to take Intro to Ag this year, and that's the vast majority of freshmen, so well over half of the freshman class coming in have requested to take Intro to Ag. And from there, the kids who are interested in an animal science career or that just area of interest, they will take animal science, then advanced animal science. And one thing we noticed that our students who get to their junior year and are interested in an animal science career, they don't have anywhere to go after advanced animal science now that we've been able to offer this for 2 years. And so we were able to get the research and ag course approved earlier this year, which we're really excited about. And I think I have about 8 or so students enrolled in that class right now. So these numbers, I just wanted to point out, are increasing as this program enters its third year.
So
And
is each one of those a semester then?
no, all of our ag courses are a year long.
Okay, so each one's a year, okay.
Yes. Our ag program, just like all career and tech ed programs at the high school, are advised by an advisory committee. Ours is comprised of 10 local industry professionals, 4 of which are animal science focused. I have a veterinarian, companion animal toxicologist, animal groomer, and a rancher that serve on this committee. We meet twice a year, and they kind of inform me what I should be teaching in my classes and what students should, what skills they should possess once they graduate, especially if they're interested in a career in animal science. So this is a really good resource, and I've talked to them about this animal lab, and they are really on board and would love to see something like this happen at THS. So the goal here is to seek approval to use an existing facility here on the THS campus to house this animal laboratory, and I would hope by the end of this school year. The purpose would be to house animals year-round for classroom demonstrations and provide a laboratory space for experiential learning opportunities. So I put an example of dissections up there. Earlier last school year, I did a lab in my animal nutrition unit where a local locker plant provided digestive tracts for the kids to dissect, and we had to do that out in the parking lot because my classroom and welding shop is not a real good space to do that. Right, and so this would be a space where we could go and do those types of things as well, along with providing a space to house animals to use for the classroom. And so that animal nutrition unit was in December, and luckily we got a nice warm day to do that. But it'd be awesome to have something under a roof where kids could, experience these awesome learning opportunities in a designated location. I've also put that this would expand student research and supervised ag experience opportunities. So research, I mentioned the ag research class earlier. Those kids will be doing experiments and working with K-State researchers on those experiments. And so this would be a really good opportunity to give them some hands-on experience here on campus if they don't have access to animals at their house. And SAE is a project that all approximately 150 of our students that we had last year maintain. It's a project that they do outside of class time. So some of you I know have kids in 4-H. This is similar to their projects that they maintain and their record books that they keep on that. And I just wanted to add in the SAE. It's a huge component of our ag program, something that both Beth and I, the other ag instructor, find very important. But last year, the 150 students that we had completing this had almost a $95,000 impact on the Tonganoxie economy alone with their projects. So this is a job that they have outside of school. This is a business that they are starting. So we have lots of kids who start their own lawn mowing business, or they're raising poultry and selling the eggs, things like that. but that economic impact comes out to about $500 per student, and they logged over or close to 15,000 hours in these projects in 2021 alone. So this is just over the course of 1 year. Another thing I'd like to point out is that if you look right here, animal science is the largest focus of the SAE project that our kids have, with 69 students maintaining an animal-focused SAE project. So animal science is a huge interest among our students. This coming year, we're going to have around 160 unduplicated students in our in our program, in our ag classes, based on current enrollment numbers, with about, I think it was 194 students enrolled between the two ag instructors, which equates to almost 28% of the student body at THS enrolled in an ag class. So we're really excited that we get to see that many kids and have that impact, but we think that there's still room for growth, which is important because in career and technical education classes, we get an additional 0.5 weighted funding from the state of Kansas per student enrolled over the introductory level. So the kids that we have taking animal science, advanced animal science, or our welding classes, or our plant science classes, we get additional funding for them. So the more students we can attract to these programs by offering potentially this animal science lab space, the more money we can bring in to the district. And so because we have a lack of an animal science lab space, I just want to point out that these funds are provided by the state to help cover the cost of these types of programs and lab spaces, such as our metal shop, our wood shop, small gas engines, auto tech, greenhouse, school store, fax kitchen, the list goes on up there. So I think this is something really important that we need to add, because I can teach from a PowerPoint all day long and give kids worksheets, but the real core value of career and technical education is getting kids hands-on experience with whatever they're interested in, and if they're taking animal science, that would be working with live animals. I also want to point out that our district lies within something called the Kansas City Animal Health Corridor, which is a region that stretches from Manhattan, Kansas to Columbia, Missouri, and represents the largest concentration of animal health companies in the entire world, with over 300 companies at this point contributing nearly $22 billion to the economies in both Kansas and Missouri. And then I won't dive into this. This is on the sheet that we gave you. But these are just some of the big companies that are hiring animal science graduates from animal science programs from community colleges and universities. Because we are in this animal science corridor, that is why companies like Hills Pet Nutrition are attracted to this area. So Hills is coming close to the end of next year, and they're going to need animal nutritionists and people with animal science backgrounds to be able to run their equipment and things like that. So as an animal science program, we have a duty to make sure that we are training qualified students and getting them into career pathways or education pathways that they need to pursue these careers, as well as the American Royal complex that will be breaking ground later this year at the Legends, which is expected to bring more animal science companies to the region. And that kind of brings me to my point that, one of my biggest pet peeves as an ag teacher, especially teaching in the Kansas City area, is people are like, why are you training kids that, are 30 minutes west of Kansas City to be farmers and ranchers? Well, I'm not. I have a very small percentage of kids that want to be a farmer or a rancher. So this is just a small list I came up with off the top of my head that are just some animal science focused careers that kids can pursue, because less than 2% of Americans are actually engaged in production agriculture, but nearly 20% are engaged in the ag, food, and natural resources industry. So it takes a lot of people to get food from the farm to your house or to your grocery store. And just to kind of let you know that this isn't just some harebrained idea that I have, this is something that other schools do. So I've included a couple pictures here of the Animal Science Lab at Paola High School that is managed by their animal science students and FFA chapter. They raise swine there. They have space for chickens, working pens, chutes for cattle, horse stalls, and then they have a meat processing lab as well. So here, there's a couple other pictures that they have of their facility. And then they have scales there so they can do research trials with animals, with feed and things like that. And then there's the meat science lab that they have. East High School, which is the largest high school in Kansas City, Missouri, has an active FFA chapter and animal science program, and so they have a small animal lab where they're raising poultry and fish for consumption. So the actual lab itself, I'm not necessarily asking for any money from the district. I think that with the existing facility, I can cover this all with grant funding. The grants that I've listed here are not a comprehensive list by any means. They're just a list that I feel pretty confident that we'd have a good chance of receiving grants for these. But not only grants, community partnerships. We've already had a couple of individuals and organizations that have expressed interest in helping out with this project, both just with their expertise and financially, or with other resources. So I think there's a really good opportunity here to make this happen. And so the actual plan itself, this summer I've worked with the city planner and the city codes enforcer just to make sure that all of this will lie within the city code, and they have been very supportive of the project, and what the current plan right now fits within the scope of the city code. So we don't really have an issue there. But what I would ask for is hopefully by September that we approve the use of the unused structure that I'm about to talk about here on the THS campus to house the animal lab. Just because grants like the Leidy grant is typically due end of September, and so I don't want to miss out on those funds to make this happen. Over the course of the fall, I'll reach out to other organizations and apply for other grants to make this happen. And then over the course of November and February, we would hopefully be able to renovate the structure to get swine in by the February-March timeframe. Swine is our main focus in there because they can be contained in a smaller area as opposed to anything like sheep or goats. And they're just a little bit easier to raise in that sort of confined area. And then over the spring or summer, we'd have students that would follow a model similar to what Beth does with her greenhouse, and that we would have a student manager team that would then be responsible for feeding the animals and watching them and taking care of them as a part of their SAE project that they could then exhibit at the Leavenworth County Fair through FFA, again providing more opportunities for our students to be engaged in animal agriculture, especially since we have 160 kids in the program. Well, most of those kids live within the city limits and they don't have opportunities like this available to them. So the current structure I'm talking about is at the old junior high football field, also was used as the soccer locker room most recently, but since soccer has sort of moved locations, this facility is not used currently at the moment, and it sits just south of where we are currently in the new District Administrative Center and just south of our current Ag Department facilities. So this would be an ideal location that would allow us to use this frequently for class time, would also just have easy access to make sure animals are cared for at all times. I've included a layout of the current structure and then a proposal of how I would envision changing this to include 4 to 5 swine pens, plumbing for sinks. We would also plumb in individual waters to each of the pens so that the animals have access to water at all times in case there was some sort of weather event to where we couldn't make it to the facility or something like that. Animals would be under a constant state of good care. The biggest cost that it's going to take to make this happen will be to insulate the building to make sure that the water lines will not freeze, and then replace some of the siding on the side of the building and then repaint it.
Would it be heated, air conditioned, or just?
So heated, yes. Air conditioning, I propose adding 2 windows right here for a cross breeze, and then adding an exhaust system in there to ventilate any air out, and then the animals will also be under fans. And so part of the plan is to add a couple more receptacles in there because it has just a meter on the side of the building, just like your house would have. So there's enough power going to the building, and there's already water ran there that we could easily get a contractor in there to help us, bring that up, make sure it's up to code first of all, and then add these extra receptacles and things like that to make sure animals and kids are both comfortable. On this page, I've also included a picture of a heater at an animal lab I visited at a school in Missouri. They have a facility a little bit bigger than the one I'm looking at out here. This just uses 110 power, this heater, and they said that it is more than enough for what they do. So I'm kind of looking at using something similar to that to make sure the building stays heated, as well as insulating it. I think the other big concern here, and the issue I've talked about with the city, is making sure that this isn't any sort of a nuisance in terms of smell. And so the manure and pine bedding, which most of the waste would be pine bedding, because that would be cleaned out each week and added to, would be removed weekly and taken to a different site to be composted. Kids would also work to clean and sanitize these facilities, and there are existing floor drains in the building already, so we could easily wash the pins out, squeegee the floor, just making sure things are neat and tidy, and kids are learning the best animal husbandry practices as they would have to do if they were in an animal-related job.
So out of 365 days a year, how many days of a year would animals be in there?
So I think it kind of depends on how we get started. I have a couple of ideas. First, maybe to start out a little bit easier, we would just do feeder pigs, which would only need to be in there 4 months. But at some point, I would like there to be animals in there most of the year, especially if kids are going to use these for projects to show at the fair, because that would require them to be there through July, and then probably take some sort of a break before we get more in the fall. So we'd like them to be there quite a bit. I teach my swine science unit in about September usually,
Yeah.
so it'd be nice to have them there when we're learning about that, and the kids can go out and learn how to properly ID the animals and all the different care techniques.
So, with your plan for how you think this program can grow over time, does this space accommodate that to where you feel like you've got a mature program and the space is still adequate?
I think for what we have available to us now, it's kind of the best option in terms of just funding this with grant funding. That's a very reasonable goal, I think. In the future, I think we'd have to look at maybe either adding on to that facility, or I know there's some other ideas of what could happen over in that area. Maybe we build a new facility. There's a location just south of the greenhouse that it's kind of just used for like some storage of equipment right now. That could potentially be an option if we ever wanted to expand. But again, in terms of funding right now and the grant funds that I think would be reasonable to pursue,
Yeah.
that facility is, I think, our target.
Do you think you'd hit that point? I mean, best guess, in like, are we talking time frame of 1 to 2 years, and then have to, be interested in looking at it, or are you talking 5 to 10, or over 10 years, or what's your thoughts?
Well, I think in terms of what we can use these for, program use is very flexible. And so if I just keep 5 animals in there, that's enough for me to use for class time. Now maybe that's not enough for kids to use for SAE projects, but that's not necessarily the main focus of the facility.
Okay.
It's for class time, and making sure kids get hands-on experience with these animals, learn how to handle them, learn how to care for them, different veterinary medical techniques that they need to do with them. And so, yes, it may limit us if our numbers keep growing, but it'll still do its job.
The basic needs.
Basic needs, yes. So, my kind of last slide here is just sustainability. How do we plan to keep this going? So, we're going to start this up with grant funds and community partnerships, but we can sell sides of pork. This is a project I actually did at the school I student taught at, and that's how it was funded, was selling the sides of pork to different community buyers. And so they would pay the fees to the locker plant, and they would pay for the pork. And then a lot of times they would kick some money over to the program too, and that would just go into an account that would then keep the project going the next year. We could also potentially invest in breeding stock. That kind of goes back to your idea of how much do we want to keep these animals here all year, because if we have breeding stock, they stay here all the time, but it does reduce the purchase cost of them if you're able to do that all in-house, and it opens up some other cool opportunities for students, such as like artificial insemination or something like that. And then again, the program that I student taught at, they got this program going so much each year in their animal science program that they were actually able to give quite a bit of pork back to local food pantries, which could be a really cool community opportunity, or a way to give back to the community. And I've talked about SAE several times. Our kids have been very successful in the National FFA SAE grant program, where they receive $1,000 from the National FFA organization to either start or expand their current SAE program. And so I think this could be a really cool way for kids to bring some resources in there on their own, and really give them some personal buy-in into the program if it is their animal that they are taking care of. So with that was kind of fast and furious, but I'll entertain any questions.
So what's kind of your goal for the grants? I mean, is there a range that you're trying to target?
Yeah, so this fall, I think we could probably fix up the building. I'd be pretty comfortable saying $15,000 in terms of what I've kind of been gathering on prices for siding and insulation for that building. Again, those are going to be the two big costs. And then other organizations have reached out to help with some of the pens or the livestock and feed costs as well. So the big focus will really just be getting that building usable and making it, attractive. We don't want this to be something that detracts from our programs or detracts from our school. We want, the building to look better than what it currently does. Right now there's holes in the siding and things like that. And so hopefully this facility would look better when we're done. That would be the goal.
Are you intended to put cameras and stuff in there to monitor virtual, to keep an eye on?
Yes, so that is something that we have thought about. Again, adding that into those grant budgets. What I've seen some schools do is they just put deer cams out, kind of starting out. That's a real cheap, option. I'd like to see something a little bit better than that, but I mean, if that's what we have to do to start out. And my proposal on the floor plan, I also take out some of the exterior doors on the backside just to reduce access to the building, especially from the backside, because I don't want that to be an issue.
Some of the pictures you showed some animals outside. Do you see a need for, because one of the pictures had chickens and stuff?
Yeah, at the moment, we
poultry
do not
outside.
have a plan to do anything outside.
Okay.
Are the other, obviously Kansas City would be all in town. Like Paola, is this attached with the school? I've only been.
So actually, they built it onto their bus barn, which is just right down the road from the school.
Is
So
that still
it was
in
a part of a
this-
bond.
Is that still in the city limits then?
Yes. Yeah.
I guess I'm sorry. I'm kind of curious about your conversations with the city because there's rules on how many dogs you can have, cats you can have,
Yes.
all kinds of things.
Yeah, so some of the big ones is the structure has to be within 300 feet of any structure where people are living at, and it exceeds that measurement. We're also under kind of some special circumstances because we're a school. We don't have to have any special permits to have a welding shop or an auto shop or a fax kitchen. If you were a commercial kitchen, you'd be subject to different regulations than a school kitchen. And so I'm pretty confident that the city is pretty on board with the plan, and I'm working on getting something in writing from them just to
That
make
was
sure.
that
that
kind of
we are-
follow-
I have
I
a
mean-
verbal confirmation, but I want something in writing.
Yeah, well, we all would.
Yeah.
And then I assumed, were they under the impression of it just like 5 animals or larger option? Because they can.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on right now is we're finalizing that number. And so I think we could we would limit it to probably 10 animals is what I'm looking at right now.
Would they all be pigs or would they be something different?
Right now we're just looking at pigs, just keeping it simple. I don't foresee adding on any different species right now. Because if we added sheep or goats, they would need outside space.
Right.
And maybe at some point we would add chickens, but that's not in the plans currently.
You may find doing outside space for pigs too, because keeping that many pigs confined in a small space like that, for managing the waste, are you going to have like a cesspool, a septic system, or anything like that?
So each of these pens are about 60 square feet, which is above the recommended level set by the swine industry and K-State researchers. And so I feel pretty comfortable that the animals will have enough space, and we would only keep 1 in each of these pens. So right now, according to this plan, there would only be 4. I'm looking at maybe adding another pen here. So up to 5 in the current plan. And again, kids would be taking that waste out weekly. We would have some sort of a barrel, something like that then we could then take and use as compost.
Have you considered getting raised floors that have the mesh flooring where the waste, especially the liquid and quite a bit of the other waste, could be flushed through, but then that would run through kind of like a septic? They can daylight, but with a septic, for a small amount of pigs, it wouldn't be a monumental expense, and you wouldn't even know the animals were there.
Right, yeah. Right now, I think because there's floor drains already existing in here that if we kept that cleaned out, and I hadn't considered the idea of a raised floor. Currently, I was just planning on, I have some rubber matting that we're going to put under there and then pine shaving on top of that just so the animals are comfortable, which would be somewhat easy to clean out, but again, you need to remove those mats every once in a while. But I do like the idea of the raised floor, and that would make it easier to wash down the drain.
Yeah, I will tell you that managing that waste as the animals grow,
Yeah.
that's a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
And you put a sow in there or a gilt in there that has pigs, and that's where you want to get to. I mean, I think you'd be better off starting out with a raised floor ideal concept.
Yeah, you know, I like that idea.
It becomes a lot of work.
Oh, it does. Yeah, I raised livestock growing up, so it's
And
a lot of work, but it's something good for kids to learn and realize that it's not just something easy. There's a lot of labor involved in it, but there's a lot of reward as well.
And the city understands that that waste is going to go through the city's septic systems. Then, like that, it's going to go through our water treatment. Like,
I haven't
is
had that
correct?
conversation with them, so
Okay.
I can ask them if that's a concern. But I mean, all the water in the city does go to a water treatment plant where it's received chemicals and whatnot before it is able to go back into the water system. But I can ask for sure.
Is there some? I don't know the history of if you know this or anything, but just from my perspective, you know, on an education. I mean, that's what we're here for, is for education. I wouldn't limit yourself to just the. Don't hesitate to bring us something to say, hey, we've got this much money, but to do it right or to do it quality, and we're this short, and here's what that gets us for teaching capability, the benefit to the students. You know, there's some things related to like just how does it all work, you know, from a campus perspective that I'm trying to wrap my head around. And even like, okay, let's say it's rainy and muddy. How do you get back there if you need to load animals or something like that? Is there a pathway? And you know, how do we ensure that there isn't, you know, an odor issue, or, you know, because a lot of times with these you have pretty large air changes, you know, to control that kind of stuff. And, you know, just there might be more there with roof fans and stuff like that, you know,
Yeah,
could
like I
could
said
add
earlier, we'd like
cost.
to add an exhaust system. Just
Yeah.
for one, it's comfort of the students working there, two, comfort of the animals as well.
Yeah, a lot of them are like 10 air changes or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it can get pretty heavy on that.
Right, and again, like I in my mind, this facility is going to look better than what it currently does, and it's all going to be enclosed. There's nothing happening on the outside in our current plans. So,
I guess I'm maybe a little concerned about the focus, because is it just for teaching, or is this really SAEs for kids that are going to go off? So I wish, it
So-
seems like it needs to be more narrowed in focus, maybe.
okay. To me, I want to get the most value out of using this facility. If we're going to put this much money into it, I'm going to spend this much time applying for grants and trying to get them. I want to use them for teaching, with the understanding that kids also have these as a project. And so, I mean, the kid takes
that-
care of their project on
That
their
limits
time.
the number of kids, though, in my mind. So if that's their SAE, those are only the kids that are working with those animals. So
Yeah, so I envision probably if there's 5 pigs, 5 kids would have to then apply for the program if there's more than 5 interested. I don't foresee very many kids necessarily wanting to spend every day over the summer training a pig to go to the fair. Some will, some won't. So I don't know if that necessarily answers your question, but I think we need to get the most out of this if we're going to put this kind of investment into it. And I don't foresee that necessarily taking away if we're using it for both SAEs and classroom instruction.
Just to tag on what Zach was talking about, really honing in and making something worth its value. So in the greenhouse, very similar setup that is used a lot for classroom instruction, as well as I have students working through SAEs in there. Their SAEs have really blossomed over this summer with the new greenhouse. So yes, they've worked on, learned things in the greenhouse and used that teaching tool. But at the same time, they've taken that and made projects just expand and kind of grow in their interests. So this summer, Rachel Kessinger has started a mum crop. I've never worked with mums, but she's able to use that greenhouse and utilize that space to expand on something that she's extremely interested in looking at for a career. So similar to this, yes, we would hone in and use that for classroom instruction and, use everything it's worth, but at the same time, let those kids grab onto these huge experiences and opportunities to really grow in their own personal education as well.
I think this is very intriguing and interesting. I think that there's a difference, between the greenhouse and having live animals, and we've got to deal with the city and neighbors.
Absolutely.
And I think there's a lot of things. I think this is a pretty ambitious plan. I kind go somewhat to what Drew said is, you know, I don't discourage you from keep pushing this through, but you know, maybe it doesn't have to all be grant funded. I mean, there's funds that we have available. We're trying to work through this master plan process and meeting through some of that probably next month as part of our board process. But
What would the timeline on something like that look like?
I mean, I can't give you a timeline. I mean, we don't necessarily move the fastest, and I understand you have a desire to do some things, but I mean, that's my opinion. I think that's great, but I do think it's kind of an aggressive time frame in my opinion to get everything kind of turned around and in place. I mean, you know,
In
we've been
terms of
working on this
approving it, or because I mean, if it doesn't happen this year, we can get animals in there. I mean, it gives me more time to make sure it's done right. I want to make sure this is done right. That again, it's an attractive part to our campus, not anything that's going to detract from the district. So if we can't have anything in there by March, April, well, it's not the end of the world. And the building being fixed up is still something to report on for grant reports.
Is there a timing from the grant perspective to say, you know, once you get the grant, you have so much time to use it, or is there some commitment there as part of the grants?
So it varies grant by grant. So the Leidy grant, for example, that one you typically get your funds November timeframe, November, early December, and then you need to report on it by June 30th.
Okay.
And so even if the project isn't done by that June 30th date,
You show progress.
you need to show progress on it. Yeah. But again, every
Zach,
grant's different.
what I would suggest is continue to have your conversations with the city. I think any board members that have questions, direct them to Zach and Beth so that they can come back in September with a follow-up presentation, and let's see where we're at. Give you guys all a chance to think about it. I mean, this was a very good presentation.
Yes.
And very informative, well thought out, and let's see where we're at in September. And if it doesn't happen this year, I like what you said. We can maybe make it even better the following year. So
Okay.
don't give up.
Well, I would just like to comment, this is probably one of the best presentations in my presence of serving on the board, so I thank you for that. I'm totally supportive of you and what you're trying to do here. If you're working through the city and you get written approval, I mean, I think, from my perspective, it ought to be pretty simple. I'll be honest with you, let's put some gates up and fill that thing up with cows. See some cows
I mean,
out
I
there.
could promise that, but I figured the pig might be an easier sell.
I'd love to have a presentation like this every month, because this is directly here to our mission and our vision as for education. So thank you for taking the time to pull this together and present it.
If there's anything I can do to clarify anything between now and September, I'd be happy to, and I can ask the city about the drainage issues, and again, work on getting that written.
I guess
information
my
from them.
question all along has just been, if this building didn't exist, then what would your grand plan be?
That's a good question.
So my timeline would not be ideal for my impatience-ness, but I think we have a really strong supportive FFA alumni chapter that works a lot with community organizations, and they could potentially help out with something a little bit more long-term, but I don't want to detract from their goals, because their big thing is student scholarships and really helping more on the student side of things rather than trying to fund a facility for the school campus. But that would probably be where I'd maybe look at, because finding money for a $100,000 Morton building, if not more, would be challenging.
I guess that's where I was going. So what is the square? Just in a nutshell, what is the square footage of this building that you want to renovate versus what is the square footage of the Morton building that you would like to put up? And if you were going to put that building up, is by the greenhouse the perfect spot? And then also on top of that, how does this square footage compare to Paola and the other school districts that you're talking about? So would this building come out to be 1/4 of what they have? Or is this, what is
Yeah, this facility I'm talking about, it's quite a bit smaller than what Paola has. I don't know the exact square footage. I mean, you look on here, that big room, 750-ish square feet. It's kind of what you're looking at. But I mean, I would love to have something a little bit bigger. But again, I guess I think more in terms of what can we do with the resources we have. And so in terms of using grant funding, I kind of just limited to what we have available to us, and this is, I think, the best option. So.
Well, don't limit yourself to what you, because I mean we have a list of projects and you know that we're prioritizing, and you know we all have votes on that and prioritization, but it would not surprise me if something like this would generally rank relatively high, something like that, given you know how it's impacting students directly in an educational way. So I think what Kai is thinking is, you know, is if you didn't have a building there and you had funding available, is that the location that you would like to put it? And is it the size that you would like to have? And what's the trade-offs for the convenience of having this existing building? Is there, for that benefit of convenience, are you losing other things that would impact the educational capability that you have there versus, you know, would it ideally be up at the, you know, at the fairgrounds? Hey, man, it'd be perfect to have it up there. I don't know if it would be or not. It might be even, it might not be good. I don't know.
In terms of classroom instruction, it's a little hard to get
I'm just
a bus
using that as
every
an
day to go out
example,
there for different units. And
yes, but I think that's where Kai is coming from, is saying, you know, everybody likes to see options. And if you go, well, here's the base, we're just using the grant, here's what this gets us, and it meets the basic needs. But if we did something a little bit more, here's the benefits of that. Here's the impact to it. Here's how that brings us up, you know, for other programs that have something similar and for capabilities. It's not to say that something like that gets approved. We can't say that. I mean, but it's worth asking the question.
right.
I think that it's very possible I'm more impatient than even you are. So I think that what I've learned over the years, though, is that you unless, like, you've proven that you know how to put together a business plan, right? Like, you're very detail orientated, and you went through, you know, dotted your I's and crossed your T's. So if you do that same scenario for your what's the word, like, what would be the best case scenario? Like, if this building just didn't exist and you had to come up with something like, this would be fantastic if I had this. This would, you know, we'd be able to have, you know, the best program in Kansas or whatever it is. What is that? And then what's the cost of that? Because then if you compare the two, sometimes it's surprising. I mean, sometimes you go, oh, this was $15K and that's $20K. Well, you know, so you don't know. So that's where I'm at. Like, you just have to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate those thoughts.
I would also think about, so I agree with Chris. Very good. I would also think about, you know, most of your sustainability points are kind of around how do you fund it. But to me, sustainability also means, you know, you've got 50% of incoming freshmen that are going to be in intro to ag. How does that stair step down to folks who would be interested in this? Because 4 or 5 is a pretty small sample size, and you got to start somewhere. But I would also think about sustainability as not just financially, but how do you get to a critical mass to actually be able to do what you want?
Right.
And that's not to take away from your presentation. It's very good.
I didn't mean to be negative either, but I just wanted to. I just like to be honest. I mean, my dad was an FFA advisor. I'm probably one of the few that's got an ag degree in here. But you know, I think this is very good. We just got to make sure and dot the I's and cross. And we finish it out what we're looking at to get the best possible.
Okay, and if, I'm sure the Paola ag teachers would be receptive if you guys ever wanted a tour of their facility. So that's also an option. So, all right. If you have any other questions, that's all I have.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, let's move into the consent agenda. We've eliminated item 2.20. 2.8, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. All right. Sorry. I guess we'll move into Lauren's report.
All right.
Or
So
public comment. Do we have any public
Okay.
comment?
no. Okay. All right. Thank you. So if you open up my report, I do have quite a few things on here that we need to touch base on. Since our last board meeting, it just seems like there's been a whirlwind of activities that have come down the pike, and so we've been busy, to say the least, and I think it's reflective on all the things that I just need to touch base on. So the first one, and we're going to, of course, talk about this a lot more later, is the budget document, and Rebecca and Randy Corns with Greenbush and I, even Dustin Avey to a certain extent, we have worked to put this together. A budget that we feel we are comfortable with, in which there is a slight mill levy decrease overall. But like I said, we worked with both Greenbush and with Piper Sandler to come up with a solution. And then, of course, we, as I mentioned in my report, Jim and Justin met with us the following week after we finished the document to just, for about an hour and a half, and just talk about the budget and how it works. And they asked a lot of good questions. And so they had a better understanding of the 2022-23 budget. So I was glad to see that. Rebecca did attach some notes. Mr. Bothwell asked that she put this together, and this is for your information, basically, to have. If anybody were to ask you about the budget between now and when we actually have a hearing in September, there's just some information that could be beneficial for you. It may not be perfect, but it is kind of a high-level view of some of our budget history. And I don't know if I have too much else to say about it, unless, Jim, is there anything that you want to say about, we're not getting into the budget, approving at this point, but just where we're at.
Just for everyone's recollection, the budgeted amount is the max amount of spending. It's not the cap, just so that we don't have to republish. So that, they just show the actual expenditures versus budgeted. There is an increase of about $1.7 million from that budget from year, and Lauren kind of outlined some of the large items differences that have happened. I think we had a pretty good meeting with Dustin Avey regarding the bond fund is probably the one where in time we'll be able to bring down the mill levy more, but with the losing of the state aid that we had, we had to put $2 million in there out of the bond premium fund to kind of make sure we didn't have to adjust that mill levy. The local option budget does show a slight increase, but that's gets to the max that's allowed by the state law, and with the formula that we get like
42 cents out of every dollar. 48. 48. I'm sorry.
48 cents state aid on that. So the reduction was made to the capital outlay to bring down the mill, so that one, given the newness of our buildings and what we have with the existing bond funds, so we could keep that mill levy flat. So I don't know. I'd be happy to answer any other questions, or if Justin has any comments of sitting through any of that he wants to share, or as we get to that action item, if you want to have anything. Otherwise, I'd just turn it back to Lauren here.
I was appreciative that both Justin and Jim came in and asked a lot of good questions, about the process, and we felt it was a beneficial time to go over this. I don't know if I've ever had that kind of support before, so that was good to have those discussions. Then following that meeting that we had earlier that week, then on Thursday, Rebecca and I took the proposed budget to KSD, to Dr. Craig Newswander, who's the financial guru there at KSD, and he gave us a very strong endorsement of the budget itself, felt that the school district is in good financial position, and so he had very, very few suggestions or alterations to the budget for me to bring back to you. So I think that's about all I have on the budget at this point. And there's, there's some additional documents that we provided. The Code 99, is there for your review. Form 239 and the Form 150. These are all documents that are very important for us when we are developing the budget. So these are just, it shows our mill levy, it shows our state aid, and some of the weighting factors that go into a budget. So, and I would tell you this
Would it be-
also. Yeah, go ahead.
Would it be possible to walk through this? I mean, this is a lot of information, but I don't know that I'm going to interpret it correctly.
Well, it's not easy to interpret, except that what would you like to know? I mean, I guess that's where I'd start at.
Well, a lot of this I'm just seeing. I'll start with the one that you have for the fiscal years and what's budgeted and actual expenditures. The simplest
Oh, the one that, yeah,
document
okay.
that you had included. It looks like we're consistently 7 to 8%. Our actuals are under our budget.
Correct.
So that is, and last year it was the lowest. So where does that money go that isn't spent?
That money is then transferred into next year's budget. You have to have that startup funds through August and through September, because you don't get any state aid until late September.
So has that been?
So that would go
growing?
that would go into your salaries and everything else.
But year over year it's been growing. Is that correct? Because it looks like every year.
And a lot of that depends. Yeah, it's grown some. It has grown some.
So if you add 3 million plus 2.5.
It's not cumulative, Drew. I asked that question.
Okay.
It's
So if you want to go ahead.
well, I probably can't go into that much detail, but that delta is not cumulative. It is rolled into next year. So the 3 million from 2021, 2022 is not additive to the 2 million in 2020, 2021.
Okay. So
It's not-
so
it's
that
not-
is spent, and then that's part of that's enrolled into the budget for the next year.
You
Yes.
I asked that same question.
Yeah. So how much, as a percentage-wise, is our forecast of revenue from, because the state requires a hearing if it's over what?
As far as the revenue neutral.
Yeah, the revenue.
Yeah, well, we exceeded. We exceeded the revenue neutral, so we had to let the county know that, Leavenworth County treasurers know about that. But I tell you right now, I don't know very many school districts that were R&R. Almost everybody has exceeded that. It's
Well, yeah, I just didn't know, because I'm looking at the.
I don't know the exact percent, Drew, just off the
I
top.
think it's 3%.
It's probably, I think that sounds right, but I don't.
I mean, I don't know if I can accurately articulate the revenue neutral, but I mean, we trip it because of our appraised value, and
Right.
the general fund is 20 mils mandatory to the state, and we trip it in that category, even though we have to automatically send those in. In one.
So if you take the budgeted for this year, the 38, 735, 280, and you factor in the percent increase that had, over the previous year, 37. Is that the percent increase, or is it more complicated than that?
Percent increase for what? I mean, I
For
guess-
revenue, because if it's budgeted, that
Well, the revenue is based on the.
because that fact. I'm confident it's more complicated than that.
I'm just going.
Yeah, I'd have to get an answer on the revenue neutral part. I mean, because, mean, our costs go up every year, so with our appraised value, I mean, it being like 15% up at our flat mill levy, I mean, that's more than our revenue last year.
Yeah, but our budget only went up a little, probably less than 4%.
Well, the complicated part is that despite the mill levy, the general fund balance is a formula based on headcount trends.
Yeah.
So, and some weightings we get for CTE, special ed, low
At-risk.
income, I mean,
Free and reduced.
so it comes up with a max that we can collect from the state. And then that's where that local option caps out at like 31% of the general fund. And I think that's where it works backwards to that mill levy amount. The 11.151 on the local option is the maximum we can collect and be within the state limit on local option. I mean, and then the capital outlay is capped at 8%. We put it in at 7.5 to
7.5.
keep the mill levy flat.
Yeah.
I mean, the bond and interest is the one where we have to make our debt payments, so it's the mill levy necessary to cover our cash flow. I mean, part
Hey,
of
Drew, if you have any more, if you have any more specific questions, I mean, I can set up a meeting with Randy Corns or even Dustin Avey if you have some questions before we actually take this to our hearing.
I mean, because tonight we have to we're
Just
just
publish.
getting it to publish. It's not the final budget.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say, I mean, the bond and interest is the one where I think as we continue to grow, that it's going to have the most opportunity to be brought down. But right now, I mean, Dustin advised roughly about a half a payment cushion in that fund at a minimum.
He thought we
Or-
should revisit in about a year.
I mean, because our debt service, this is roughly $5 to $6 million, depending on what year and how it's structured. We'll have a minimum projected balance in there of around $3.5 million, so we're right there in that range if we can sustain that. Which I mean, I think his projections are always pretty conservative.
So-
Has he updated it based upon the actual?
Yes, did that not?
I think I have.
I have one. I can forward you.
Yeah, I think I have one too. Here.
Okay.
I might be able to just give you the one I have.
What was your?
I mean,
I was just gonna say, so fundamentally, it's about 1.7 million, that Jim said is the additional tax revenue that we're gonna levy. And that increase would be effectively the increase in valuation, which is something less than 14%, because the mill levy's flat. Mill levy's actually down a little bit, but it's, for all practical purposes, it's flat.
Yeah. It's just putting a squeeze on a lot of people.
Yeah.
I totally agree.
I mean, I agree. I mean, our costs aren't.
Going down.
Don't miss out on inflation though either.
Drew, you can have this one.
Yeah. Although I think that the valuation might be outpacing some of that, because I mean, our inflation for labor did go up 15%. We didn't give everybody 15% raise. But I think somewhat, it sounds like some of it's offset by also state. Is it correct that we're not getting as much from state? And I'm
In state aid, you mean?
You know, I know we're not on the bond side has almost gone to zero.
Right. Yes.
But then elsewhere, is it also trending down? Or
SPED.
The sped part is.
SPED was huge.
SPED.
That was huge. It's supposed to be funded at 92%, and we're probably going to be in the mid 60s
Yeah, but how much is that in dollars?
For us, we lost over $160,000 in state aid this year.
Yeah, but so that's not a big driver, and it's a contributor.
We're
I'm-
projecting about 300.
Right, overall 300, but it's just, it's not a huge number, but it does affect us, especially with hiring and salary increases. That's where it falls, that's where we fall into it. And your cash balances, we spent down our cash balances this year, projected, as we move into next year. We hired 4 new employees to cover our needs. So, yeah, there's just more and more expenses related.
I mean, I'd highly suggest coming in, talking to Lauren and getting that Randy Corns on the phone.
Yeah.
Because,
Absolutely.
I mean, I feel like I've been on here 5 years and I learned something, I learned more
Oh, it's
the other day
complicated.
than I had, things I didn't know from before. I mean,
And this is kind of your.
wow.
Your background
I don't, I'm not going to be, don't call me a school finance expert. I don't know.
You know more about.
I mean, I think, I mean, believe me, Justin and I challenged him on bringing our mill down further, but I mean, I think we realized where we landed was probably
I would-
the best interest for the school. I mean,
Right, but what I'd like to see is like a what if. Let's say, hey, if we were to hold it at, what does that scenario look like? Like prioritize our expenses. Say if we got in, kind of like a stress test or something. Like, to me, it's like, oh, we want to have this, but it's like, okay, well, what's the impact if we were to try to get it? If we had to get it down, like what is that extra covering, or that increase covering?
It's not that easy.
Yeah, I think that the thing that he mentioned to Jim and I that probably had me because the concept of spending down some of the cash balances was something that I pushed on pretty hard. And as I understand it, the general funding rules will change next year. The current law, it only goes through this school year. So there's a lot of unknown in terms of what that looks like for next year. So there probably, within reason, is a point where having a little rainy day money is okay.
This is the last year of the increase in Bay State aid.
So
So-
to your point, that what if scenario, I mean, it's a multi-factored equation that's, I think, pretty hard.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to come up with everyone, but if somebody comes to me and goes, well, what's being done with that money, or why? Because it's almost like what's the cost benefit? Hey, you're paying more in taxes, but if we were to try to keep it down low, these are the things that would have to go away, right? I mean, it equates, this amount of money equates to these programs added up, or something like that. Just say, like, there's a real impact to it if we
well,
do.
our head count has dipped through COVID. I mean, I guess that trend's going to be critical come September, and the state extra funding drops off. There's no catch-up funding, which we've been using for salaries
For 4
the
years.
last several years. So, I mean, if our trends and headcount go down, or if they, and we didn't have that extra money from the state this year, I mean, yeah, we would.
We'd be
I
burning
mean,
cash
it would have been
balances.
hard to give raises, and it would have been. I mean, if the headcount number goes down, you have to start cutting expenses. You can't do what. I mean, there's a large neighboring district to the south that didn't. I mean, you have to get on the trend early if the no head count, and if you're depleting your cash reserves.
Right.
I mean, I think it can go pretty fast. I mean, probably the extra sheet was kind of what came from what Justin and I had the conversation about, the $1.7 million and kind of where it went. There's at least $1 million worth of
Increase.
or so in large items. It's not going through every nickel and dime on every small item in the budget.
Okay. Well, if I have questions, I'll.
Yeah, no, that's
circle
fine.
with
I
you,
mean,
Lauren.
yeah, and Randy would be more than happy to meet with us. So,
I just forwarded that. Hopefully you got the email with the attachment from Dustin with the
increase.
bond fund projection.
The one I-
Okay. in the 5%, he has like a growth factor like 5% for next year, but I think that's probably pretty low.
Okay. Okay. All right, thanks. Okay, I'm gonna move on. We have been meeting with the city and with Hills Pet Food. We have another meeting tomorrow, or wait, yeah, it's tomorrow at 10 o'clock. So, just very good conversations. You know, the plant manager has been attending those meetings, and the HR people that are involved in those meetings. So what we're going to talk about tomorrow is what are some things that our different buildings could use and support. And you know, I know that Hills has been participating in the backpack program. They participated in school supplies, you know, those kinds of things. So those are things that we're going to talk about. Maybe, you know, how can they support us in a positive way? They want to make a good impression. And I know, for example, they're going to be at the Tongi Tailgate, and you know, as a meet and greet. I think that's great that they're going to be down there, and along with good people from McCown Gordon. We get to see all those guys. I don't know if David will be there, but all right. Well, that's the first. So appreciate it.
Thanks for coming out.
No. All right. But anyway, these have been really good meetings. Mitch and I met with a train representative last week, and what we talked about was the performance contract. What the options were. Overall, we know that it's been far from, it's not been perfect, but we are much better positioned now than what we were a year ago. That's the point. And I don't know if Mitch, we haven't set up a follow-up meeting yet, but there are some other possibilities, some enhancements that Train is, possibly suggesting to be more proactive. With our HVAC units across the school district, and it's a service plan. So we'll take a look at that, and what kind of value that has, and how that might help not just Mitch, but save some money on the school district. Now we're not talking about a lease option type thing here. It's not like that, but it is. How can we be better, more proactive in looking at potential issues that come up with our HVAC, and they're going to come up. They're going to continue, no doubt.
Hey, one thing on the city side, I thought you'd skipped over to the next
all right.
one. But on the city side, when they repaved the Washington Evans, there's a speed bumps right there on the elementary school, and they're about an inch shy of just covering up the speed bumps. And I didn't know, for a safety factor,
I'll check.
if what the city's plans were.
I have another meeting with George. I'll ask.
Okay.
I noticed they weren't as severe.
Stop. I don't like
I
driving.
know,
I don't like driving over
people
those,
like to go
Drew.
fast, but they're put there for a reason.
Yeah, I noticed that. Okay, I'll check on that. The Girl Scouts, we just got the MOU at 4:45. It was late, we didn't get it because Jill had a meeting at 1:30 with the representatives. The lease is in the document, and so it's finally there. They've been great to work with, and of course what they want to do is lease some of our buses and pay. They're willing to do all the payments necessary. We had to make some adjustments because they're actually thinking they're going to have pretty good numbers of visitors and participants. So these are all wait and see. But anyway, we had the same kind of contract a year ago, and then it was canceled at the last minute. So it's very similar. But I think it's a real plus for the school district. Our kids will use it, and it's good PR, I think, for the school district that we're working with. The Girl
Last
Scouts.
year we had KSB review that, right? So
Yes, and this one we will
it's
too.
the same. Okay.
Mhm. Yeah, it's similar. They just adjusted the cost, but everything else is the same because there was an increased amount of requests for buses and drivers.
Yeah, I guess our fees, I assume, went up because
Yeah, we and Jill adjusted everything. I think that it'll be positive for us. CASA classification, I'll be going Wednesday morning to the, it's the Kansas State Department of Education Board of Education. This is the hearing in regard to private versus, it's not a private versus public, but it is a private school multiplication factor that this has all been talked about. It's a success factor. So, I mean, what it does is there's a weighting system. If you've won so many state championships within a 5-year period, or, you know, then they add enrollment numbers to your head count, so that if you're a very, very successful 4A school, you would be bumped up into 5A.
Are those 5 consecutive years?
It's within a 5-year time span. So it could be like 3 out of 4. It's a weighting factor. So
There's ways
it's
to
not
play-
it's not consecutive.
There's also ways to play games with that a little bit, so you don't fall within that 5.
I mean, to lose a state championship
Yeah, if you
game, or
were-
I don't
if you
know. I would
won.
hope they wouldn't do that.
But it concerns me when you have
There's a lot of weightings. It's like a budget. I mean, they have.
Is this used other places too? Like,
Yes.
is that-
Oh yeah.
okay.
Oh yeah. They
Missouri
looked at
does.
Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri. I mean, all over. And we started this 3 years ago, and we've gotten to this point. And we have to have a majority of the State Board of Education to accept this proposal before it even goes to the state legislature. So we don't know. Paola's principal AD is presenting for us for Frontier League. He's very well spoken, and I think he'll do a wonderful job. But there's 3 people speaking as proponents, and there's 3 people speaking against. And then they're each allowed 10 minutes. So it's going to be fast and furious. But we know how we
Guesses
feel.
on who the 3.
Yeah, we know how we feel about this. I mean, I think Tonganoxie community knows how we feel about this. I don't know where it's going to land. So we'll see. Safe School walkthrough was just the initial walkthrough. Spent most of the day on April 2nd. A member of KSD came out, visited with all the principals. We had city police officers there. Mitch was part of that. There were, I don't know, there was probably 16, 17 of us in that room when we started. And they walked through all the buildings and made suggestions about safety. The same person is going to be one of our professional development speakers on the 15th, and he'll be talking to the teachers.
Have you had any changes to
Yeah,
your protocol that you?
suggested. So yes, this is all. We'll be working on our crisis plan. We'll be working on our school safety
So
plan.
other schools have talked about keeping doors locked at all times.
Yeah,
Is
all
that
these things.
Something that.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of information to put together in this, and I think he was pretty sound. Mitch, you were with him almost all day, and he pointed out things we never thought about, and all in the sake of experience. And I thought he was.
Is there
Pretty
a
strong.
will there be like a written report on this? or anything?
No,
It's
this
just-
was not a safety audit, so there will be no report. We can ask for one of those, but this was just his initial walkthrough of the buildings because he's going to be doing professional development for us. So he wanted to get a feel for the buildings and what questions he would have from the teachers and help us put together our plan.
So he had a better presentation too next Thursday.
do the
Will he be
audit, is he
helping you put
charged?
together the plan? Will he be?
Not yet. I mean, we could.
But eventually,
We could. Yeah.
or is he giving you feedback like that?
Right now, it's just his observations, and he's putting together his thoughts for the professional development. And so we're not sitting down yet and having those discussions about what.
So when
Well,
are you planning, I guess, to have a
Soon
plan
as- soon as-
together?
I don't know. Is there a timeline?
We've not set a timeline for that. This was just the initial meeting and walkthrough. And then he'll do a presentation to all staff, classified and certified, that Monday morning. And then he'll go to each building and do a presentation. And then we will follow up after that. What are our next steps? Where do we need to go from here?
So I guess with school starting soon, I'm concerned that we maybe need something in place that shows strong security for our safety of our students, and maybe have those discussions prior to school starting to see if there's any changes that need to be made in our buildings before school starts.
Yeah.
which-
We have a little bit of time.
My assumption is if we have like an audit or a report or something like that, then that becomes like executive content or something like that for security reasons, because you don't really want to put out there, hey, here's all our
It wasn't an audit.
No.
Yeah, but if we were to
Oh,
have
yeah.
something
Oh,
like
absolutely.
that, or if there's a report or something like that, or I think if on the executive session, I think that is potentially one of the things that,
But
you know, if there's
but
a
I think
security-
to Stephanie's point, we'll have another conversation, a follow-up conversation with the admin before school.
Was there, I mean, the possibility of this guy doing some sort of further audit? I mean, maybe that comes at a cost or additional cost or
No,
something
there's
like
no
that?
cost for it. We had planned to do that, but we were not there in our steps yet. We have our crisis plan in place, and that's been approved by the state. Actually, it was their template that they sent to us, so we have a lot of plans in place, but we just haven't tweaked some things.
I guess I'll go to as a parent of a child here in the building. I would like to know that my child is going to be safe and that we have thought thoroughly through every single opportunity that we could to make sure that those students are safe. And I believe that should then be communicated to the parents.
Yes.
So prior to school starting, I would like to know as a parent, but I'd like other parents to also know that we have taken what has happened in our society recently seriously, and that we are making sure that every student when we walk through is going to be as safe as we can possibly make it. I know there are going to be times that we can't predict everything,
Right.
but I do think that needs to be communicated.
Well, and I think what they already did is here's what we've done so far. Here's what we are still planning to doing, and you know, provide some updates on.
Well, and if
et
he
cetera.
would have seen some glaring errors or things that we needed to correct immediately, then we would have done that. So based on his initial walkthrough, we are at a very good place.
I just think, yeah, I get what you're saying, Stephanie. You want to follow up. Yeah, I get it.
and
So,
communicate it out.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So,
And if everything's great, that's awesome. I mean, I'm
Right.
happy to know that.
Okay.
I just think that needs to be communicated.
good.
Well.
I appreciate it. Yep. Okay. And I kind of doubled up here. So the Hills Pet Food meeting is tomorrow. And then the Playground Committee and Progress Update, there's an attachment that Chuck sent out that he has, and I met with one of the vendors this morning with Mr. Henry and Mr. Mann, and there'll be additional conversations with other vendors. So there's even more to add to all of this. They're actually going to be coming to the September board meeting with a much more thorough presentation. So they're putting all that information together.
Now, what is that information? What is that?
All right, so they're meeting with vendors.
Uh-huh.
And so they got 3 or 4 vendors coming in. And they're talking about options, they're talking scope, they're talking timelines. They're going to be meeting with that committee of teachers and stakeholders and putting together a plan that they'll bring to the board so to look at. So it might be what type of equipment, it might be the surface, all those kinds of things. An expanded playground. I mean, are we looking at a pre-K standalone playground? So they're looking at all those things.
Yeah, I just want to see some options and then understand what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah,
as a
no, it's
goal.
coming.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
and clearly communicate.
I think we'll get there. And I think we're on the right track. I know that's what they're working on. The vandalism update, I did have a call today from Leavenworth County, and so we'll be setting up another meeting here very soon to meet with Mitch and I with the costs that were related to the damages. And we have that all put together now. McCown Gordon helped us with a lot of those exterior costs that went in with the cleanup and the repairs. Mitch has got the hours put together, so we'll have that meeting probably within the next week. I'll be giving you an update on Friday updates where we're at on that. The master plan update, I'll be meeting. There was an attachment there, isn't there? Is that correct? So, let's see.
Oh, that was it's under,
Is under which one is it under? Help me there.
Prioritized list.
yeah.
Is it under the
It's
prioritized list?
under your
Yes.
board.
Oh, there it is. Okay, I found it.
Superintendent report.
Okay, yeah, that's just, okay, that was sent out And maybe you've already seen that, but that was the one that Amber compiled. That's just informational. I mean, I'm having conversations with Amber weekly about all this, and but for all practical purposes, this is what they're presenting. It's now we take this information and start diving into it. One thing that Mr. Bothwell has asked me to do is develop a more concise capital outlay plan, and so you know with major costs that don't come in this project form. So it might be those projects that are $100,000 and less. These are the major ones we know about. So we'll be working on that. That's another one that Rebecca, Tanya, Mitch, and I will be working on. The vision, mission, goals. I'll be meeting with Dr. Meckel, and he wants to sit down with Tanya and I to just dive a little bit deeper into our needs assessment piece. And then at some point, we may be revisiting with him, but he wants to meet with us first. And so that's where we're at. And then the KSB updates, we'll revisit those in September. There's just a couple of things, and I know there were suggestions made that we just need some clarification on with, you know, Drew, as far as some of the things that, what was the biggest one? You found the
legislation.
The legislation piece, so we had to check on that. And even though it was not duplicated, what was the term you used?
Redundant.
Redundant. And that's how it was written. And for whatever reason. And so we have to kind of, instead of changing what the legislation passed, we need to take a hard look at that.
Okay.
So we're a little more comfortable with it. So we'll do that too. We got that before September's board meeting. And then I'm working on the capital outlay projections. That was one of my, that's going to be a major project for me as we move forward. And then I want to do one more thing here real quick, is we do have a new staff member here tonight, and you guys have been talking about communication and getting this information out. Well, she's back here, and this is Becky Naselroad. And Becky, you can kind of real quickly introduce if you want to come up and introduce yourself. We're really pleased to have her on board. She's been here for almost 2 weeks and doing a great job with some of our communication. I mean, we're very appreciative. So you got it.
Sure. My name is Becky Naselroad. This is my third full week here in the district. Already excited to get some things going. And I have a degree in philosophy, background in communication, public relations, as well as executive administration and education. So I've had a lot of kind of diverse experience that has prepared me for this role. Already getting started on some really good things for the year and working on just putting together some plans and getting some things going. So I'm really enjoying it and I'm really happy to be here.
Saw you taking notes back here, because
Yep.
some of the things you were talking about with communication, with safety, or, you know, all these are things that she's going to help us with. And we also know that she's going to play a big role in when we have our new website and trying to do a huge upgrade on that, and marketing, and the branding piece is big for Becky. So these are all things Kyle will like. So we are.
Yes, I will. Lots of polishing too.
And it's much more polished, and the misspellings that we talked about, we're really trying to clean those up, and she has those skills. So we're pleased to have her on board.
Thank you.
Well, welcome.
She also let me in the building tonight. So.
I did screen him first.
We'll talk to you about that later.
It's her fault that I'm here.
But anyway, thank you. All right. Ooh, that was a lot.
All right. Any other questions for Lauren or anything? If not, Tanya?
All right. Opposite of Lauren, I'm going to keep it brief. Basically, I just have some updates for you on things that are going on with back to school. We will we'll see how our numbers go. We had our kindergarten enrollment Friday, August 5th, and then we are currently in the middle of on-site enrollment now. Our families who've been here before are encouraged to enroll online through Skyward, but we do have on-site enrollment for those families who are new to the district or who are not able to enroll online. We've got new staff orientation coming up this Thursday and Friday. We'll be using the professional development room. It is looking amazing. So we are very excited to have that room, and we have some really good things planned for our new staff. All of our staff return on Monday. And if you are in the neighborhood and would like to join us for breakfast at around 7:30, come on out to the high school. We'll have our professional development, have our breakfast in the cafeteria area, and then we will go into TPAC for our professional development. And speaking of professional development, we have worked really hard all summer with our admin team to develop a really solid professional development lineup for this year that's really focused on using our data that we have, really building up our curriculum and instruction. I'm really excited about our laser-like focus that we've really developed. So looking forward to how professional development is going to go this year. We are taking part in the LETRS training, which is the science of reading. If you've heard about the LETRS training or you've heard about it in the past, it is revamped and it's amazing. We're also not only putting our kindergarten through third grade teachers through it, which is something that the state is paying for this year and is a huge value to us, but we are also training our elementary administrators and myself in the LETRS admin training. It has been amazing so far. We have learned so much from this. It is really going to benefit our staff, and we're very excited about that. I think it's important for our administrators and myself to have that knowledge that will help our teachers build through these 2 years of training. So it's super beneficial. So then we've got our August 15th and 16th for professional development. We'll have our work day on the 17th, and then we will start right into school and have our first half day for 1st through 6th and 9th graders on the 18th, and then our first full day for 1st to 12th, Tongi tailgate that night on that Friday, August 19th. Everybody come on out to that, and then we'll have kindergarten start for their first half day of school, and then their first full day of school will be on the 25th of August.
Do you have outside people coming in to do the training, the professional development training?
We do for some, yes. There's kind of a mix in those 2 days. We have some building level and we have some outside. Our LETRS training for our K-3 staff is on that Tuesday. They'll be in the PD room, so we have the outside. They're actually through Lexia that they're coming out to train. Then we have our school safety presentation that we have. Those are our outside folks for this time.
But for data, you don't?
Oh, not yet. A lot of that will come in later. We're working with Greenbush on that to provide some more in-depth professional development on using our data. I am working with, when the K-3 teachers are in there with their LETRS training, I'll be working with the 4th and 5th grade teachers on looking at our interim assessments and taking the cluster maps and using those to break out our fall, winter, spring tests and looking at last year's data, where we were, how we scored in each of those areas as a building and district. But we'll also have our student information too that we can look at. That is going to be really good information for that staff to have. I've got a really good format planned where our teachers are going to be learning and also teaching each other at the same time. So I think that's pretty beneficial, especially if you just sit and get, you can only learn so much. But if you are having to learn it and then teach each other about it too, that is going to be really beneficial for our teachers.
Will there be any goal setting during that time too, like looking at the past, but also kind of thinking about where we want to go in the future as far as?
Yes, the cluster maps are really helpful in that. It actually shows you what they test in each area, and if you test in the fall, the winter, and the spring, it'll really predict how you're going to do on the state assessments. And so making sure that our curriculum lines up with, are we teaching the right things at the right time? Lining that up with our scope and sequence. So setting goals based on that. We have to make sure we teach the right things at the right time in the right order for our students to get them. But a lot of the data piece will come in our PLCs, and some of the professional development that we'll get into really deep in October, where we're really going to take things and look at them a lot deeper, look at our MAP scores, just really taking it a lot deeper. The initial professional development, you can only do so much at the beginning of the year, and staff are really thinking, I need to go get in my classroom and get things ready. But embedding that into our PLCs and how we use those to start that process in the year, our administrators have had some more information and training on that, and then we have some resources for them to really focus in on their PLCs. And then by October, we'll be really digging in already and just take that a step further. Good stuff going on.
What are the trends on the I mean, I know we don't have final numbers, but are we
It's high.
trending up?
We were when I checked the other day, we were around 144, and we actually added another teacher. So we have eight total classes instead of 7.
Is
So
our overall enrollment?
don't know yet. I mean,
Well, based on, you probably have preliminary.
Not.
it's a little too early to say.
Is it?
We just had our first day. Well, it's still
I would
going
like
on.
to.
First day of actual
But most
in-person
people who are
enrollment.
doing online have already done it online, right?
Most of our parents have the numbers for online
Sure
enrollment are a lot better. A lot of times you have to really pull teeth, to get people to complete online enrollment. And the numbers right now compared to how they've been in previous years are way up in the number of parents, returning parents who've already completed online enrollment. So that's encouraging. Our secretaries go back and check those who have not completed, and they call them and walk them through it. That's been successful. And then our numbers for brand new families, we know a little bit, but today was the first day, and I think they're still right in the middle of that. So, we'll know more.
We've had increased numbers of parents that are new to the district, but we don't also know how many have left. So,
A lot of those we don't know until after
Right,
the first day of
so-
school when they
yeah.
don't show up.
yeah.
So I did actually do it today, but one thing that is something I wish we could fix is, so if I wanted to pay with my credit card, I can't. I have to pay a 3.2% fee on top of it, right? And then also I have to go into another site and know another name and password in order to do it. And if you have multiple kids, then and it's over $500, then you can't. You have to do multiple transactions. So I feel like there's a better way.
Oh, we can check with Rebecca
I
and
don't
have her
know.
look
I
into
mean,
that.
even if I could just Venmo. I mean, I don't know, but it just seems so silly.
Makes
to
it
me
hard,
that-
huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, that I
It's
have to
different.
pay extra to do it on a credit card, and then so basically my option is that I write a check and drive it down to the school, but
Well,
which
you
is
can't
fine,
finish, right?
I guess, but it's just not
Or
convenient.
you could pay on eFunds with your checking account, and they only charge you $1.
Yeah, but I don't ever.
I think
would
it charged
never
me
do
more
that.
than $1 last time, but I have to look. I didn't.
I don't
for
have
your-
my checking
shouldn't for your
account
checking.
attached to anything.
Stephanie
Well-
needs a refund.
Would
I'll
be the
have to
same
look.
one you use for your debit, I guess.
I don't have a debit card.
It's once again
She has
something
a
that
bad.
we make a note that we can take a look.
We don't use debit cards.
Is the high school schedule the same as last year? Has there been any adjustments to schedule?
It is different than it was last year. I'm trying to remember if they came and talked about that. They're adjusted. It's well, I'll have to have them come and tell you about it. It is a little bit different.
I mean, we had a nice presentation here with the CPE programs. And then I think about the walk from the school building down to this shed. And if the class time's only 45 minutes, you get down there and you
And you're done.
lather the pigs, it's time to come back.
Yeah.
I'm just asking.
Has there
No,
been-
that's where they get into the lab
I have the
schedules.
same concern, I guess, too, because I've talked to several teachers that are trying to teach within that time period, and by the time they get things out, they're cleaning it up, and very little teaching occurred during that. I don't know if there's been a discussion at all.
We're talking because we went to the longer times when the pandemic, and all I heard was positive feedback from folks.
From the longer times.
Yeah.
And the kids liked it better. From every kid I've talked to, they actually appreciated the longer class time. But maybe there's other.
I just don't know what the reason was. It seemed like it was better all the way around.
Well, your core teachers appreciate seeing students every single day as opposed to every other day. Like your math, you want kids to be in your math class every single
Your lab
day.
classes, they want more time.
Yes. And I think they've worked with teachers on double blocking. I don't know the exact
I don't either.
schedules and the changes that they've made. I think the high school it'd be great for them to come and
Yeah.
give us an update.
I was just curious.
Yeah, that's fine.
I just encourage people to go to the breakfast if they can. I'm
Yep.
going to be on vacation that day, so I'll be out of town. But if someone can go, someone wants to say a few nice words to welcome the staff back, probably appreciate hearing from somebody other than me. So, anyway.
Oh, one thing, Tanya, I was going back through emails, and back at the beginning of the year, we did the family survey and the teacher staff surveys, and I couldn't find where we got any of those results back. And now maybe I just missed it, or I didn't.
I believe I shared the family results, but the teacher results, I did not have one teacher respond in any of the buildings after multiple attempts to get the response.
I guess in some ways that is a response. Would you resubmit to me?
Yes, I could do that.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? If not, we'll move into the action items, and you're gonna have to help me out here on these, Lauren. I don't know exactly what we're working through here on.
So the first one, Aaron, why don't you come on? And she can explain this. But as far as when your contract ends, so kind of go through that with everybody.
Is that
in.
the first one?
Yes, it's work order 1.
So, if you recall, I've been working mostly with Jim and Drew early in the beginning on my contract, our contract for this work. At that time, the anticipated completion for the job was trying to push it to be done by the end of November. So, as the design progressed and the county board solidified their schedule with some of the bracing and all those other things, now the completion date for the construction portion is the end of December, with some of that closeout, commissioning, warranty punch list stuff anticipated to last probably into February. So that portion of it is just continuing our base monthly fee through the month of December, and then half of that for January and February, assuming obviously there won't be as much time commitment or work during those 2 months.
Okay, that helps clarify. I wasn't. Lauren and I didn't have a chance to connect on
No,
this
that's fine.
beforehand, so I was kind of.
I was unreachable last week, so just trying to hurry and get it at least out for you guys to somewhat look at before.
Is there any questions from the board? Okay, questions?
No,
If
that
not,
makes
I'd
sense.
entertain a motion to approve action item 5.1.
Sorry, one quick question. So the extension through February 22 is just the ramp down of the current phase, nothing to do with CTE.
Correct.
I would move we.
Well,
approve
it should,
item-
there should be a correction to 23, right?
No, it's extended into next year for the.
The dates in there show January and February 22. Drew's saying it'd be 2023.
Oh, yeah, the actual contract extension that I wrote says 2030.
Okay.
But does the action item say 22?
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
The contract's
The
got
appendix,
23.
the work order actually does too, the attachment exhibit,
So,
exhibit
Yeah.
2.
Yes,
but we're talking February 20.
February 23.
Yeah.
Correct.
You want to add that to your motion or what? Or I guess you didn't make your motion.
Yeah, I would move that we approve item 5.1 with the clarification that the dates are December 2022, January and February 2023.
Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. All right.
Thank
into
you.
Action item 5.2. Again, Lauren.
Once
you're gonna have-
again, this is the CTE. Actually, Aaron asked me about the process of us looking forward to maybe, a CTE renovation project, what that would all entail. And so that's what this is about, is I thought we would be good to have Aaron on board as we work through all the RFPs and everything else that's scope, everything else that's involved with this process as we get ready for a possible CTE renovation this next summer of 2023. So I'll turn it over to Aaron as far as the detail on that. So this is what that's all about.
Is this,
Work order number 2.
okay, this is just Esky and Associates work order, and then DLR's is a separate
The
one?
first one is work, yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Between owner and program manager dated March 26.
okay. So, yeah, just kind of backing out a little bit, both of these items, DLR and the Esky and Associates for the CTE, is really trying to get to a place where the board says, okay, this is a project we want to proceed with, and with the idea of doing the construction next summer, we really need to get started on it by September at the latest. So figuring we got a couple months of design, a couple months of bidding and permitting, with the feedback of the board that this would be bid out to multiple contractors. Takes a little bit longer than going the CM at risk route. So bidding that out, then just procurement lead times we talked about earlier with furniture and AV, some of that stuff, and then getting ready to start construction in May. So bringing both of these work orders to the board tonight to get, so this one specifically for Esky and Associates with the feedback from Lauren and other members of the board, that we would be honored to continue to stay on and work with you guys through this CTE renovation, providing basically the same scope of services that we have through the rest of the project, with the addition of guiding through creating and issuing and monitoring that RFP process, which we did not do for the bond project, as McCown was already on board at that time. So that is what we have I put forward in the proposal. I tried to be really detailed with the specific activities and scope, kind of outlining number of hours, estimated hours per scope item, and being as detailed as I could there, showing you how that all breaks down. It would continue to be both myself and Sammy, who has been involved in this project heavily on the AV side, leading that part of the integration, as she's become really knowledgeable with that and what your guys' needs are.
What's the target construction or target value that we're?
It was 500. I'm gonna guess it's gonna be every bit of 600. That 500 number was put together a year ago.
Well, what's that? We're talking new furniture, AV, paint. It's like the 4 classrooms.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just
Lighting, flooring, ceilings, some added sinks, and then depending on budget, I know Lauren wanted to look into possibly some ventilation booths for the welding shop, which were not in that 500 budget originally. And we talked about adding, that original 500 budget was adding AV for the 4 CTE classrooms. We're now talking about potentially 2 additional, the band room and 1 additional classroom south of the TPAC. So there's kind of some scope cost evaluation that's going to have to be done through that process.
So what would the shelf life be on the design and planning work for this? Because one of my concerns is, we've not done that multi-year capital budget view, and we know there's a lot of priorities. So if this didn't make the summer 2023 chopping block, is the work throwaway? Because that's my big concern. My concern is not about working with Esky or DLR to go do this. I think it's a big project. My concern is if it's a 2024 project, is it throwaway work?
Well, I guess I saw it as a very high priority when we went through the master plan process.
I don't disagree with you, and it may well be a 2023 project, but until we know what projects we're not gonna do, because this is at the top of the list, I think it's just,
Yeah.
there's a lot of speculation involved.
So I think, to answer your question, Justin, I think the shelf life, nothing is gonna dramatically change in that year other than costs. They're not gonna go down. They may stabilize, but I don't think anybody thinks they're gonna dramatically drop. My only other concern with that would be AV technology. And we'll let Forrest jump out here and tell me I'm wrong, but the goal of this is to make all those classrooms match what was just put in all the new classrooms. So we all know technology changes very quickly, so I don't know if those same products will be available or not. That's
So for my clarification, if the board approves this tonight, is it just giving us the authority to start
to design it. and bid
design it, but it doesn't mean that it's actually going to be?
Yeah,
Well,
we
unless-
can put that caveat on it.
$60,000. So that's not.
That's
Well-
no, but I'm talking the big.
I understand.
Yeah.
I agree. There's
Well, and also, Justin, half of my proposal would be costs during the construction phase. So just,
Yeah, gotcha.
you know,
Okay.
if we didn't proceed with that, I wouldn't charge you for that.
I mean, what I'm hearing doesn't sound like a whole lot of designing to me. In renovating these rooms.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you
Are we
still
rebuilding or?
Probably the biggest.
I mean, I'm talking
effort.
about, I'm hearing
No.
lighting and paint and some furniture.
Structurally,
Maybe I'm
there's
missing something.
But you still got
No.
to put, if we're going to put it out for bid.
Yeah, if you're gonna put it out to bid, and it's really the, you know, putting in the sinks and stuff, a little bit of plumbing, and then the AV coordination, power and data and all that.
The
Good
biggest
stuff.
effort from a design standpoint is just documenting the full scope so that you get an accurate
Accurate bids.
bid.
Yeah.
That's most of the effort.
Yeah.
Is going through all, because there's so many touch points with the existing that's where the
And, I mean,
line is.
I'm not gonna sit up here and advocate for CM at risk, but you could get away with a little bit less design, going that route, just because you work hand in hand with one person on the scope and pricing it. But, so there's trade-offs. You can maybe get a better price through a bidding process. But to get that better price, you really wanna make sure that your I's are dotted and your T's are crossed, so everybody's pricing the same thing.
Well, but, I mean, kind of back to Justin's point, I mean, if we, well, I don't know whether it's best to postpone this. I mean, hopefully by next month, we've got kind of the capital budget and the master plan, and I know we're under time frames. Or is this something, if we table it, that wrecks that? Or if we approve this tonight, some things can start, but we can put some contingency in this if it doesn't fit the,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think
the
I'd be
timing plan.
comfortable with waiting to approve these until the September board meeting if you guys need a little bit more time. I think if you do want to achieve a next summer construction, or if that's at least the goal, that releasing the design work by September is probably
The latest.
we want to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would, I'm supportive of the firms and doing this for the CTE to make everything look good, but I really would like the projections that we've been kind of talking about to make sure we got everything else covered as we spend some of this, you know, excess funds. At least that's my take on it. I don't know if there's what other thoughts.
Yeah, it feels
the
like
board
there's some
member.
due diligence.
It's fun.
Well, is there?
that needs to
We
be
can
done.
sit and talk about this a long time, or if somebody wants to table this for now. Or,
I would move that we table item 5.2, pending some better understanding of the long-term capital outlay budget.
is there a second?
I would second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. I mean, I appreciate you sticking around and kind of walk us through that.
Yeah, no problem.
Everything you have done for us. I mean, it's been, I think, very helpful through this whole process.
Well, I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Action item 5.3, we kind of talked about this earlier during Lauren's presentation, but we're required to publish the budget so far in advance. We wouldn't approve anything till the September 13th meeting. I don't know if there's any other questions, or if there'd be a motion to approve the proposed budget as presented.
I make a motion to approve the budget publication as it was presented.
I second it.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion carried. Item 5.4, the Girl Scout MOU. We got the document late. I don't know if anybody had a chance to look at it. Is there any comments or questions on this item?
I haven't had a chance to look at this one. Was this reviewed by?
It's the same document. I mean, I guess that was my question earlier.
We had reviewed last year by KSB. Yeah, we got it. We just got it this afternoon. But so none of the verbiage has changed. It was the only thing that was adjusted was the financial agreement. Everything else is exactly the same.
I mean, we could approve it contingent upon a review. I mean, you're talking an October event, and that would give the administration time to.
Was there any noise or fallout from last year?
No.
Well, it got canceled, right? So we
Yeah.
never did
Yeah.
it. The event.
Okay.
You know, they've been great to work with. Just the person that was our point was not the same person this year. And so that was a little bit of I think slowness in getting this all back together so that they had a better understanding of the MOU. But I feel like we're in a good spot.
Questions, comments, motion?
When it says duration, it says it will end on October 2nd, 2021.
It should be 22.
4 p.m.
Where's that at?
Right above contact information.
On page 2.
Yeah,
Oh, page 2. All right, we'll change that.
So that date, I'm assuming, is probably not the same, nor the
No,
year.
it's 2022. Okay, didn't get caught. Okay,
I think it should be the 8th too. Like the
it
actual-
is the 8th. It was last year. It was the 2nd.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Is this, we can approve this contingent?
Yes.
Get those
Yeah,
changes?
we'll make those changes.
Is there a motion for action item 5.4?
I would make a motion for the approval of the MOU with the Girl Scouts of Northeast Kansas and Northwest Missouri.
I second it.
You want to make that
Wait,
contingent upon?
Contingent upon review.
Is there a second?
Second it.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please raise your right hand. Motion carried. Does anybody need a break before we go to executive session?
I do. The restrooms, the west ones is to go down
Let's-
into the actual kitchen.
Let's,
I'm sorry.
well, no, well,
I feel like we need to have blankets.
I move we adjourn into executive session. Well, we'll take a 5-minute break and then adjourn into executive session, convening at, what, 8:18 for 10 minutes to discuss, which one, sorry. Dang it. May have to push that back. What's the,
On this person, you wrote that down.
oh, to have preliminary discussions about the acquisition of real estate for 10 minutes and invite Lauren into the meeting. Is there a second?
A second.
All in favor, please raise your right hand.
And then, like I said, the best restrooms are down.
It's just the temperature.
Yeah. Precisely.
Call the meeting back into session. There's no action at this time from executive session. Possible board upcoming dates. I mean, I think I mentioned it once. Please go to the breakfast for the teachers on the 15th. And then I guess we'll be talking about meeting with Doug Meckel, I guess after you
No,
meet.
yeah, we meet first, and then we'll see where it goes from there. Could be.
All right. Anything else? Anyone? Meeting adjourned.
I guess we can leave our stuff out, can't we?
Yep.
Hold up.